Alright, so we have our website, our navigation. Now what we need to do is add some styling because this just looks horrendous. Alright, so to style HTML pages, you want to use CSS. Alright, so let's go ahead and open up our index. Let's minimize that for now. And we want to open up, I'm actually going to open up all of our pages. Alright, so for CSS you can include it in the HTML file itself, or you can link to a separate CSS file. Typically you want to link to a new file just because it's less messy, but just to show you that you can put it in the head, what you would do is open up some style tags, okay? And then in here you can write CSS. Now I'm not going to go over I'm not going to go into the CSS syntax. I'm going to show you, but I'm not going to really explain it because it's just beyond the scope of this course. We do have videos on HTML and CSS, so I would highly suggest going to one of those after this if you don't know it, if you don't know CSS. Alright, so we want to pick an element that we want to style, and there's different elements in our web page. We have the body, which is just everything. Alright, we have headings, we have list items, images. We can grab any of those that we want. So let's just grab the body so I can show you as an example. So we just want to write body and then open up some curly braces. Okay, and then go in here, press enter, and then we want to tab over, and then we can put our CSS rules. Alright, so we can change things like color of text, background color. So let's change the background color. Okay, so background color, and then we want to put a colon, and then we can put we can write a color, let's say black, or we can put a hexadecimal value, which is a number sign, and then the value, for instance, light gray is 6 C's. Okay, so let's just try that. And you want to put a semicolon on the end of each style rule. So if I save that and we reload, oh, we're on the contact page. Let me just cut this and put it in the index page. Okay, and of course we need to upload. You know what? We don't need to keep uploading. We can actually view HTML just by clicking on this. Alright, so we'll upload it when we're done, and you can see the background's now gray. Alright, so that's how you can use inline styling, putting it right in the HTML document. I don't want to do that though. Alright, so what I want to do is I'm going to copy this body, this little snippet here. I'm going to cut it out so I can use it in my CSS file. Okay, we want to get rid of those style tags. Now we want to go to our folder structure and create a new file. I'm sorry, a new folder called CSS. And then in there we want to create a new document, and we're going to call this style.css. Okay, so you can call it anything you want, but style.css is a kind of a convention. A lot of designers and developers use that. You could also use maybe template.css, whatever. Alright, now I'm going to paste that body background color right in here. Alright, and I'm going to save this. Now if we go back to our site and we reload, well, let's get that. We need to save this. Okay, so now it's gone, and the reason is because our document has no way of showing that we're using this style.css file for styling. We need to include that in the head. Okay, and we do that with the link tag. So link, and then we have a couple attributes. We need the rel attribute, which is going to be just style sheet, which tells it that we want to link a style sheet. And then href, just like an A tag, it takes the href attribute, which is just where the file is. So it's in our CSS folder, and we're going to say slash style.css. And then finally we want a type attribute, which is just going to be equal to text slash CSS. And then we can close this with a / and a greater than sign. Okay, so if we save this now, you can see that now it's linked to that CSS file. Alright, so now let's add some more styling. For the body, which is everything, I want to change the font style or the font family. By default, Google Chrome uses the Times Roman font. I want to change it to Arial. So we'll say font family Arial. Alright, so if we save that, you can see now that the font has changed. Now this font looks a little squished together vertically, so I'm going to add a line height. Okay, so we'll say line height, we're just going to say 1.3 EM. Okay, save that, and now you can see it's spread out a little better. Alright, so now you can see this site takes up the entire browser, the entire width of the browser. What I want is for it to be thinner, and I want it to be centered in the middle. So we need to do a few things. First thing we need to do is create a div tag to wrap all of our content. Alright, so that we can make it, center it and make it thinner. So to do that, we'll go in our index file, and right after the body tag, we're going to add a div tag. Alright, and it's going to have an ID, and that ID is going to be equal to container. Alright, and when you're creating divs, your IDs and class names can be whatever you want. I just call this container because it's putting our entire website in a container. Okay, and then down right above the closing body tag, you just want to close out that div tag. Okay, so now all this is wrapped inside of a container, inside of a div with the ID of container. Okay, so let's save that, go back to our CSS. Now when you want to represent an ID, you want to use the number, the pound or the hashtag. Okay, like this, container. Alright, now you don't have to use an ID, you can also use a class. Alright, we could do div class equals container. Okay, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep that as an ID. Now the main difference is a class you use if you're going to have it more than once. Okay, this container is only going to show up once in this document. Okay, we're not going to use it other places, so that it should be an ID. If you were going to use it in other places, you would use a class. And you don't have to do that. Either way, you can style them no matter if it's an ID or a class, but it's just better markup, and it's just better structure if you do it that way. So we want to say the ID, okay, which is the hashtag of container, and we're going to set that width is going to be set to 960 pixels. Okay, so if we save this, reload, now you can see that it's ending here. It's ending at 960 pixels. Alright, and that's a very common number for when you're building websites. Alright, so you can see that it's on the left though. I don't want that. I want it in the middle. So what we need to do is add margin to the container. So margin, and then we want 4 numbers, alright, and they're going to represent the top margin, top, right, bottom, left. Okay, so what we want to do is we'll leave the top and bottom margins how they are. On the sides though, we want to use we want to use auto, and that's just going to basically push it to the middle. So the right is auto and the left is auto. Alright, so let's save that. Alright, so now it's pushed into the middle. Alright, so the next thing I want to do is for the container, I want the container to have a white background. Okay, so we're going to say background color is going to be white, and I also want to have a border. So border, and then that takes 3 input values. The first is going to be the size of the border. We're just going to say 1 pixel. The next is going to be the color, which I want it to be a light gray. So I'm going to use that CC 6C number, hexadecimal number. And then finally we want the type of border. I'm going to say solid. You can also have dash, dotted, but I'm going to say solid. Alright, so now we have our white background, and you can see these headings and paragraphs, they're right up against the edge here. I don't want that, so what we need to do is add padding. Okay, so padding is the spacing inside the element. Margin is the spacing outside the element. Okay, so that's really important to understand. So what we're going to do is for the container, we're going to say padding. Padding for the top, we'll say 5 pixels. Top right is going to be 10 pixels. Bottom, let's say 5, and then left 10. Alright, so now it's not squished up against the edge. Alright, so next I want to do the header. Okay, I want the header to have a black background. So we can grab it. If we go look at our HTML, we can grab this header tag from in CSS. All we need to do is say header. Okay, and then background color is going to be black. Yeah, alright, black's fine. This isn't going to look very good. I just want you to get an idea of how this works. Alright, so since we have a background of black, we want the color of the text to be white. And I want to add some padding. Top and bottom will have 25, and the sides will have 10. Just remember that combination, top, right, bottom, left. Top, right, bottom, left. Okay, take a look at that. Okay, so now we have our header. The navigation I'm going to do last because that's the most complicated. We're going to make it so that it goes across horizontally. If horizontally, is that even a word? So the next thing I want to do is the footer, and I want to kind of have the same thing for the footer. I'm going to copy this. So footer, but I don't want that much of a padding. We'll say 15 on the top and the bottom. Alright, so there's our footer. Let's make the text center. Let's align it center. So text align. The W3 Schools website is a really good website to learn CSS. So I would suggest going there. Alright, so there's our text. Okay, so this image here, I want it to be float to the left of the first paragraph, and I also want to make it smaller. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to add a class to that image so that we can grab it in the CSS. So we'll say class equals sample image. Okay, so then in the CSS we can actually grab that with dot sample image. Alright, so what we want to do is float to the left. Alright, let's see what that does for us. Alright, so that's all messed up, and what I want is for it to float to the left for this paragraph, so we need to move the actual image tag. Okay, so I'm going to grab this image, cut, and then I'm going to paste it up here. Alright, so now we just want to make it smaller, and we want to add some margin so that the text isn't right up against it. Okay, so we're going to say width is going to be 180 pixels, and then margin, I don't want a top margin, so 0. Right will be 15. Top, right, bottom will be 10. left will be nothing. Alright, so there's our floated image. So the last thing I want to do is the navigation, and then of course we'll add the markup to the other pages so they look right. So we have a UL tag, which I don't think we need to deal with. We need to deal with the LI tags, which is each link here, okay, each list item. So first thing I want to do is make them so they float in a horizontal fashion rather than vertical. So normally what we would want to do is add a class or an ID to the UL tag, but where it's the only UL tag on our page, we can just specify UL inside of our style sheet. Okay, so UL, and the first thing I want to do is, by default, Google Chrome and most of the browsers, they add padding or margin to the UL tags. You can see that this has a margin on the left. It's pushing it in, and that gets messed up if we want it horizontal. So we're going to get rid of the margin and padding. We can do that with just margin 0 and then padding 0. Alright, so we want to so let's save that, and now you can see that it's gone. Now these bullets, I want to get rid of those as well. So we can do that with list style none. Okay, so now those are gone. Now we want to float each list item. So we need to go down here and we'll say li. We want to float them to the left, and we want to add padding to the right and the left. So padding is going to be 0, 10 pixels, 0, 10 pixels. Okay, so let's save that. Alright, now when you float something, you want to clear it afterwards. Okay, so with CSS we can say clear both. So that's going to clear the right and left, and it's going to make it so that it's not all squished up like that. So in the markup, right under the UL tag, we're going to add a div, and we're going to say style. Now style, it allows us to put CSS right in here. Alright, so we could say like color red or something like that. So I'm going to put this clear both, okay, and then just end that div tag. We're not going to put anything between the actual tags. So save that, and now you can see that it moved down. Alright, we do want to add some padding to the UL tag so that it's not smushed up against here. So the UL tag, we're going to say padding, say padding 5 pixels, and we want to add a background color. Background, I'm going to make it gray. Alright, now we need to add an overflow because you can see that the background isn't coming down right. So you need to say overflow auto. Alright, there we go. Let's add a little more padding to the bottom here of the UL tag. So padding top 5. Actually, we'll just say 10. Alright, that's better. Alright, so let's change the colors. I don't like the blue and I don't like the underline, so we'll change that. So we can grab, I'm going to do that to all the links on the page. So just A is going to be fine. And the color will be black, and the lines, you can use this text decoration and set that to none. Okay, and there we go. So there's our web page. It's not very pretty, but it is in fact a web page that uses CSS for design. I'll leave that up to you. The last thing I want to do is we need to add the markup to the other pages, because if we go to About, we still have this. Alright, so we need to do a couple things on each page. The first is to include the CSS file. So we want to copy this, paste that into here, here, and here. Alright, so we also need to add this div, this container div. Okay, and closing div. Okay, put it in the contact page. Alright, we also want to add that clear both div right here. We want to put that under all the menus. Okay, so let's try that. About looks good, services, contact, okay, all looks good. Well, it doesn't look good, but the programming looks good. So let's upload the site, because right now we're viewing it locally. So we just want to go back to FileZilla and grab all of this and upload it. Alright, so now if we go to eduonix.info, there's our site. Okay, you can see it goes to the About page. Looks good. So we have a static HTML website. In the next chapter, we're going to be looking at dynamic websites. We're going to use a couple different open source scripts like WordPress, which is a blog system, Joomla, which is a content management system, and we might get into an open source shopping cart system. So I will see you then.